Mike Pounds.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Walder here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday, it's hump day, it's middle of the week. We got fun stuff, we got disastrous stuff as usual. Welcome to this fantastic show that we're going to have. All right, anyway, so a little bit of a breakdown of what we're going to talk about. We've got Fox News literally laughing at Donald Trump. Yes, that's awesome. I love the video on this. Then we have Trump going after John Bolton again. So yesterday we had Fox News going after John Bolton and Donald Trump. Now we got Donald Trump going after John Bolton himself on Twitter. That's always fun. You're going to see a pattern on that one. And then we have Trump allies trying to reach out to the black vote, to get the black vote. You're not... Yeah, you're not going to believe what they're trying to do. Fun stuff. Then we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about Joe Biden and specifically Joe Biden's response to getting challenged on climate change. We got two different exchanges on this issue, and they're both disastrous for Joe Biden. So, yeah, we're going after his record. People are going after his record. They're actually challenging Joe Biden, and he don't like that. He's not interested, right? So, man, good stories. All right, anyway. So before we get into it, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do. Helps out the show. Super chats also help out the show. So if you have any comments, questions, whatever, I love to answer those and to talk. Like whatever you want to put in the super chat, ask me a question. I love to answer it. So it's great stuff. All right. Anyway, so also I'll be reading your comments through the show because I always enjoy doing that as well. All right. Anyway, with that said, I suppose we should just kind of dive right into it. All right.
To shield and shelter criminal. Look, wait. You have criminals.
All right. We're watching the president here in Wildwood, New Jersey. I just want to get a quick.
That was President Donald Trump literally getting laughed at on a hot mic by an unnamed Fox News commentator. That was awesome. The criminal. All right. Look, super embarrassing. Like you can tell that other commentator, she's like, now we're just, that's Donald Trump in Wildwood, New Jersey. Now we're going to cut to something else. Cut. Get rid of it. Oh, man. It's great. Now, look, this isn't the first time this has happened. Look, I understand that people sometimes have trouble with words. I have trouble with words sometimes. Okay. But this is common. This is a common occurrence with him. He like struggles and slurs and weirdly sniffs all the time. In fact, this had happened during his Iran speech, where he had talked about the attacks, the retaliation on an American base after he had basically green-lighted the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. So we've got video of him sniffing and slurring through that one speech. This is amazing. If you haven't seen it before, here it is again. Or if you had forgotten about it, here it is.
Terrorist. tolerate it.
One speech. Jesus Christ. Okay. Hey, maybe he had a cold. I don't know. But again, seems to be a common theme. CNN even created its own supercut of Donald Trump throughout different times where he was speaking, where he would constantly do that, slur his words, and sniff uncontrollably. Hilarious, right? So look, and he's been doing this ever since he started campaigning back in 2015. So now, there's an anonymous White House official that weighed in on this, and this is great. Also, like disastrous. Okay, this anonymous source said that this was a frequent occurrence with the president. Quote: "It seems that Trump genuinely doesn't remember important facts, and then the president can't often remember what he's been said or told." The official recalled Trump's once saying he wasn't sure he had ever even heard of a Category 5 hurricane. The problem is he had been briefed already, according to the official, on at least 4 previous Category 5 hurricanes. The official had wondered, was he forgetting the briefings, or was he not paying attention at all? He said, these are the effects, or they said, these are the events that affect millions of Americans, yet they don't seem to stick in his brain. So why is that? What's that related to the sniffing? What's that related to mispronouncing words? I think the guy's in mental decline. Partly, right? So I don't think it's all mental decline. I think, number one, he doesn't pay attention, right? That's obvious. He gets bored at briefings. He has no attention span, doesn't listen, doesn't care to listen, because he's always believed that he knows everything there is to know because he's some sort of super genius. Numerous classmates from Wharton, however, contradict that fact by explaining that he had never actually taken any time to study, and even an old professor of him told a reporter that Trump was the, quote, dumbest goddamn student he's ever had. So, look, he's an absolute idiot. And so he's also lacking any sort of intellectual curiosity. So what does that have to do with, like I said, with the sniffing? Well, look, there are some symptoms of Adderall abuse, right? And we don't know for certain that he abuses Adderall, right? There's rumors of an entire drawer full of Sudafed in his office. So I don't know if that's true as well, but it's definitely possible, especially when you look at some of the symptoms, right? Some of the signs of Adderall abuse may include being overly talkative, unusual excitability, financial troubles, guy went bankrupt 6 times, secretive behavior, memory loss, incomplete thoughts, disorientation, mania, impulsive behaviors, and paranoia, among many others, right? And if you tend to snort things, which is a popular way, allegedly, apparently, to do Adderall, I don't know, I haven't done that, you're going to be sniffing a lot. There's going to be a lot of, going on. So, look, I don't know. I'm not saying Donald Trump's on drugs, but I'm not saying he isn't on drugs either. It is pretty clear, though, that whatever his problem is, Trump's an embarrassment to even his allies on Fox News. They cannot help but laugh at him in private. And that's how everybody feels about him. People on Fox News laugh at him. The guy's an idiot. People in Congress laugh at him. He's an idiot. And yet, the only reason that they don't speak out, the only reason that they're, oh no, Donald Trump, greatest president ever. They come out and say that stuff with a straight face. The only reason they do that is because they're afraid of the voters. And yet the voters somehow, they'll look at this guy and be like, very stable genius, that's my guy. It's amazing. He is dangerously stupid. and will become even more unhinged as time goes by, as he continues to deteriorate in front of our faces. So, what are we going to do about it? I don't know, man. I don't know if there's anything we can do other than vote for somebody in the primary who's going to beat him in the general election. And then, of course, according to the polls, Senator Bernie Sanders is the best shot. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. Joe Finnick Montalvo says Trump was known for going to Epstein's coke parties. Epstein is gone, but the cocaine remains, or some crushed up Adderall. All allegedly, but yes. Trump for Prison 2020 says Sudafed from the UK was in his drawer. I saw the picture. Oh, there was a picture. Oh, damn. So I didn't actually know there was a picture. So thank you for letting me know on that. 25th Amendment now. Oh, Dana, if there was only somebody left who actually could, has the fortitude, the courage to come out and say, this guy's insane. We got to get rid of him. All right. Anyway, moving on here. Now, following the release of pretty damaging excerpts from John Bolton's memoirs, President Trump is now trying to discredit his former national security advisor. So now there are a lot of terrible things about John Bolton, but one thing is that he has always been incredibly honest, which is part of what makes him a terrible person. When you go to what he's being honest about, he's honest about wanting to go to war with pretty much every single person, right? Or every single country in the world, basically. So his credibility, not exactly in question. Nonetheless, Donald Trump in a Twitter tantrum went after John Bolton, not by name. And that's very interesting because yesterday he did go after Bolton by name on Twitter, but after reports had come out saying that he had waived his executive privilege by attacking Bolton, now he comes out and says, talks all about Bolton, but not actually mentioning him by name. Very, very interesting stuff. So now let me give you the tweets here. For a guy who couldn't get approved for the ambassador to the UN years ago, because he was too much of a war hawk, couldn't get approved for anything since, begged me for a non-Senate approved job, which I gave him despite many saying, don't do it, sir. Takes the job, mistakenly says liberal Libyan model on TV, and many more mistakes of judgment. Gets fired because, frankly, if I listened to him, we would be in World War VI by now. And goes out and immediately writes a nasty and untrue book, all classified national security. Who would do this? Yes, who would do this indeed? Fascinating. So, again, not mentioning Bolton by name. Fascinating. Okay. I love, for one, how Donald Trump is so predictable, right? He has done the exact same playbook with every single high-profile departure from his administration that was not amicable, right? Oh, coffee boy, right? Barely, always begged for his job, begged me not to fire him, begged me to hire him, right? I gave him the job. Look, he hires the best people, right? For some reason, he says he hires the best people, and for some reason, all these people that come begging him for a job, he just gives them a job. So wait, if I came up to the White House and said, oh, please, Mr. Trump, please make me the communications director, make me the national security advisor, would he give me a job? He hires the best people, from what I hear. No, it's ridiculous. And then goes after him on, oh, yeah, he says the wrong thing on TV, of course. Yeah, that's why I got rid of him. Now, his point on World War VI actually is kind of true. And look, that's important to point out because John Bolton has never met a war that he didn't like or want to start with whatever country, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela. And by the way, that I do believe is the very reason Donald Trump hired John Bolton in the first place, is because he wanted to go to Venezuela overthrow the government, and then take the oil. So, of course, that's what he wants to do. Now, Trump supported the coup in Venezuela, supported Juan Guaido, and look, unfortunately for Trump, that failed. Okay, and I'm saying unfortunately for Trump, that failed. By the way, that again, once that fell apart, John Bolton and Donald Trump started really having a huge distance in between them, right? So that is interesting. But he tried to invade Venezuela, or wanted to invade Venezuela, and wanted to do regime change on the advice of John Bolton. So it's not like you couldn't talk Donald Trump into doing stupid things. Now, as far as as bad as John Bolton is, by the way, there's somebody that's still in the administration that's even more dangerous than Bolton. And I don't mean just Donald Trump, who himself is dangerous, but I mean Mike Pompeo. So Pompeo, I think, is far more dangerous than Bolton. But anyway, I always try to throw that in because that guy, still in power, still making decisions, still incredibly dangerous. All right. So now back to the funness of the meltdown, right? A lot of people on social media decided to point out how Donald Trump seems to have a bad record of hiring the best people. In fact, he seems to be hiring the worst people and then firing them when they turn on him. Jeff Tiedrich points out, Mr. President, sir, you should fire the moron who hired John Bolton. He's the real idiot. Jeremy Neuberger says, you made a highly unqualified guy a national security advisor? You see how that makes you a complete and total moron, yes? No, he'll never see that. Fortas says, 23 indictments, 12 criminal convictions, 2 articles of impeachment, 71 suppressed documents, 12 suppressed witnesses. As ignorant of the law that Donald Trump may appear to be, ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law, and Donald J. Trump is not above the law. Interesting to point that out. Howard Foreman says, you made a lot of bad choices in life. Everything you touch seems to die one way or the other. Michael Cohen, Paul Manafort, General Flynn. Maybe it's not just them. Maybe it's you. Right. Lawhawk says, you picked the guy and now can't wait to throw him under the bus because everyone knows he's telling the truth. And you engaged in multiple felonies as part of Ukraine cover-up caper via partners Rudy and Fruman. But for the GOP being craven and complicit, you should be removed from the White House. Imagine being in a world where Republicans actually gave a crap about the law. We don't live in that world. Seriously. Now, Marie Caroline points out, notice how it's always the same. And she's pointing out, of course, the same tweets, the same arguments. Only the names really change as Trump cabinet, his cabinet continues to basically empty itself. The swamp is literally draining itself, funny enough. And again, John Bolton, for as bad as he is, he's at least honest about how terrible he is. But it really is kind of amazing, though. A lot of presidential administrations have turnover, of course, but not as much as Donald Trump. A lot of his former staffers are either in prison, in trouble with the law, or they have actively turned against him, or just completely disappeared. When's the last time anybody's seen Reince Priebus? Like, the guy just completely disappeared. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that he hires criminals and people from Fox News. Remember, John Bolton, before joining Donald Trump's administration, and before, of course, being attacked viciously by Fox News, was a contributor on Fox News for 11 years. Seriously. So, I don't know. But here's the thing about Trump. He sees someone on TV that he thinks makes good points, or more importantly, defends the administration on something, or goes after Democrat, whatever, right? He sees that person on TV. He's like Mr. Burns. And goes, oh, I got to hire that guy. Hire that guy. Now, on John Bolton's, dealing with him, originally, Trump did not want to hire Bolton for one simple reason: his mustache. What a vain and shallow individual. But that's who he is, right? So he didn't like the mustache, but loved what he started saying about Venezuela. And so we got to get this guy in the cabinet. We got to hire him. He's one of the best people, right? Now, again, Bolton is monstrous. He's a literal war criminal, right? But he's not Donald Trump's kind of criminal. And that's where they differ. See, Donald Trump loves doing personal criminal corruption, right, in order to enrich himself. John Bolton just does war crimes because that's who he is. And he's like, what? Why aren't we bombing more brown people or other people across the world? And that's what I love to do. Who cares if they're a threat to us? Let's bomb them anyway. That's who John Bolton is. And so one's a more of, oh, I want to project my own strength and power and whatever for whatever ends. Whereas Donald Trump's like, how does it benefit me? And so that's the difference in their criminality, right? So it is funny to see this entire meltdown happen because Bolton wouldn't bend the knee to Donald Trump's corruption, right? And so, and look, there's a new revelation coming out today, or that it came out today, where Bolton had basically talked to Elliot Engel and say, hey, man, Donald Trump is, in this 2 days before impeachment, right? You should look into the efforts to try to fire Marie Yovanovitch. That was Bolton, unprompted, talking to the House and saying, you got to check this out, dude. This is not good. So that's John Bolton, right? And look, loyalty is the only thing that seems to matter to Donald Trump. And that's why, of course, unfortunately, no matter what, Republican senators will not hold him accountable. They don't want to risk being labeled as unloyal or disloyal. Okay. Moving on here. Donald Trump's friends are really looking to try to get some of the black vote. So what are they doing to do so? Well, are they trying to engage in policy discussions like ending racist policing or trying to solve the economic issues in black neighborhoods with better economic policies? No, it turns out they're just literally handing out money. Politico is reporting that allies of Donald Trump have begun holding events in black communities where organizers lavish praise on the president as they hand out tens of thousands of dollars to lucky attendees. Now, the first giveaway took place last month in Cleveland, Ohio, Politico reports, where recipients whose winning tickets were drawn from a bin landed cash gifts in increments of several $100s stuffed into envelopes. So understand, this is part of the Trump outreach program to the black community. Wow. So now, if you're wondering, right, if this is illegal, well, there's some questions on this. Now, the cash giveaways are organized under the auspices of an outside charity. So it is a 501(c) charity. Now, this is the organization that is holding these events is called the Urban Revitalization Coalition. And what they're doing is that they're doing this 501(c), and then they're doing these giveaways while praising Donald Trump and his policy, while permitting these donors, by the way, to remain anonymous and make tax-deductible contributions. So the legality here is pretty sketchy. Now, the organizers are saying, oh, no. They're run by the book, and they're intended to promote economic development in inner cities. In fact, the Trump administration, and they love to tout this, right, that they created these economic zones in inner city places where they put more investment there. So along with those economic zones, they also tout the president's record on criminal justice, right? Doing the criminal justice reform, right? So now, A legal expert on nonprofit law said that this might be a bit of an issue since the money isn't technically going to a charity, as a 501c3 charitable organization should be able to give it to. Now, Marcus Owens, former director of the Exempt Organizations Division at the IRS, who is now in a private practice at the law firm Loeb and Loeb, says charities are required to spend their money on charitable and educational activities. It is not immediately clear to me how simply giving money away to people at an event is a charitable act. Well, I guess, according to Donald Trump, that might be charitable. What are you talking about? I'm giving them money. And by the way, the White House, of course, it says, oh, we don't know anything about this. Okay. Now, look, Donald Trump and his friends may be breaking the law. No, it can't be. They never do anything like that. No, it's obviously not a charitable act. No, it's a bribe. Call it what it is. It's a bribe from anonymous wealthy Trump donors to ensure that they get a slice of the black vote, and have that go to Donald Trump so that they could win and keep their taxes low. This is literal astroturfing. Now, one of the people that are running this is one of Donald Trump's few African American supporters, a man named Daryl Scott. Now, Scott, talking to Politico, declined to name the donors funding the effort, said, quote, "I'd rather not. They prefer to remain anonymous." Well, of course they would. Because, look, setting this up as a charity allows them to use that as a tax write-off as they try to court black voters by giving them money. To me, it seems like a bit of a scam. It seems like it should be illegal. Like they're literally trying to buy votes by giving out freebies. Oh, how many times have we heard conservative pundits go and talk about how the Democrats are handing out freebies to black voters, right? Oh, that's the only reason they stay on the Democrat plantation is because they're just giving out freebies. They're giving out free everything to black voters. What do you call this? You're giving out literal free money to black voters. Of course it's a bribe. Of course it's a bribe. Come on, dude. Really? Now, the Trump campaign says, we're not involved in this at all. We're not involved in the organization, the Urban Revitalization Coalition. The events are unrelated to our own efforts. The campaign has no knowledge of or affiliation with any of these activities, right? So that's what they're saying. And these activities, by the way, include showering cash on people who just have to listen to Trump speakers promote his agenda. So that's why it could be a violation of the law, because you're not supposed to actually campaign as a charity on behalf of a political opponent, or you can't be against a political person, and you can't be in favor of without breaking campaign finance law. Now, if the Trump administration, if you actually want to get black voters, maybe you should address some of their issues. What are their issues, right? Well, for one, lack of opportunity in some of these black communities, right? Institutional racism, policing, ending the drug war, that'd be big. There's a lot of things that you could actually do, but there is one place you could start, and that's by actually asking the black community. And to be fair, a lot of Democratic politicians haven't asked the black community what would help them as well. Everybody seems to know what's best for the black community without asking the black community. So maybe, I don't know, you should ask them and actually do what they say. Doing this, you're not going to get a large support of a large chunk of the black vote. I mean, maybe. Look, the Trump campaign, I think it was back in 2016, actually did get a larger chunk of black voters than Mitt Romney had in 2012, and that's super scary. So, but that's, of course, unfortunately, because the Democrats haven't done a lot with the black vote either to earn the black vote. And so, look, obviously bribing people is not the answer, but also promising to do things like Joe Biden and a lot of the rest of the Democrats, Obama, and then not doing anything, that's not going to get you support of the black vote either. So might want to work on that, both parties. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll have more stories. I'm going to obviously thank the patrons, thank some channel members. If there are any super chats, which I hope there will be, I will answer those, and then also take some comments from the audience, and we'll get going. We got more stories here, including 2 on Joe Biden, and so stay right here. We'll come back right after this break. Run the nation.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so anyway, let's get to patrons. I want to thank Rahana Barden and Dr. Calvin D. I wonder if he's a real doctor. Channel members, I want to thank David Braun and B. Sprock. Patreon.com/TWT Nation is how you can become a patron of the show and continue to fund our existence. And then membership, you can do that by becoming, by hitting the join button below to become a member. So thank you to those who support us in that way, in both ways. So let's get to the comments here. Member comments. James Watson says, wow, blatant bribery for votes. That should be illegal. Well, it is, technically. But again, they're still trying to figure out, but is it a charity? And is this actual charitable giving, etc.? So there's a lot of people apparently that are not entirely sure. For me, I see it as pretty clear. That's a bribe and definitely is illegal in my mind. So pretty simple for me. Difficult for apparently a country that loves its bribery. Ann Anderson says, this man has access to the football, and that's frightening. Referring, of course, to Donald Trump. Yeah, man. You guys remember that report where the football was literally at Mar-a-Lago and had pictures taken of him? There are pictures of the person holding the nuclear football, which you're not supposed to do because then that gives other countries, and as well as terror groups, like that's who that is. So now they can find them or potentially find them and compromise America's nuclear arsenal. Fantastic. Smart move. Got very stable genius. I'm the smartest person. Oh my God. Anyway, Take It Easy says Joe should challenge Trump as a Republican. Problem solved. Says Joe Biden. We'll get to him. And then finally, David Richardson says, come on, we all know Trump and the GOP won't listen to anyone who's not an old, wealthy white man. So why would they pay attention to blacks beyond the minimum to coerce their vote? Well, they don't pay attention to them beyond the minimum to coerce their vote. And unfortunately, as I mentioned before, the Democratic Party has a similar problem. They also take advantage of the black vote because then they think, well, what are they going to do? They're going to vote for the overtly racist party over the Republicans? I mean, you're kind of stuck with us. Well, again, of course, they're not going to vote for in very large numbers for Donald Trump or any Republicans, but still, you got to actually do stuff for the black community and not just take them for granted. And I think that's the most frustrating thing. As a non-black person myself, I don't understand. I don't feel that frustration, but I can understand how it might feel to know that there's a party that says, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to do everything that we can for you in order to get your vote," and then they got your vote because again, you're not going to vote for the racist party, but then doesn't really do anything to help you anyway. And I think I understand the frustration that they felt after Barack Obama. And so at least I know I would be frustrated if I were in that position. Okay. Anyway, again, not to try to speak for the black community and all. But I just say from my perspective, I would be very frustrated. All right. Anyway, so let's get into the rest of the show. All right. As the Iowa caucus gets closer and closer, Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden have taken off the gloves and are now going at each other over their record. Just last week, for example, Biden hit Sanders on the Green New Deal, only to get slapped back by scientists. So now Biden made this comment to a potential voter attacking the Green New Deal during a campaign event on Friday. Let's take a look.
Because not a single solitary scientist thinks it will work. You cannot get to zero emissions by 2030.
All right, so that's real quick, but he basically said there's not a single solitary scientist that believes that we could get to zero emissions by 2030. And so the Green New Deal will not work whatsoever. I mean, you don't even try. Don't even try it. And that's really that's the slogan of Joe Biden at this point, right? Unofficial, is that it's hard. Change is hard. Why even try? Well, I think in reality, it's what he's told the donors was nothing will fundamentally change if we become, if I get elected, if I become president. Now the thing is, are you sure about that, Joe? As far as, oh no single scientist thinks this way. Really? Well, it turns out scientists disagree. Over 50 climate scientists had penned an open letter to Senator Bernie Sanders. It said this, quote, "The Green New Deal you're proposing is not only possible, but it must be done if we want to save the planet for ourselves, our children, grandchildren, and future generations. Not only does your Green New Deal follow the IPCC's timeline for action," that's the International Panel on Climate Change, by the way, "but the solutions you're proposing to solve our climate crisis are realistic, necessary, and backed by science. We must protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the planet we call home." Now, the Green New Deal, of course, is pretty bold, right? But it is necessary. And it calls for 100% renewable energy for electricity and transportation by no later than 2030 and complete decarbonization by at least 2050 while investing $16.3 trillion over 10 years to create an estimated 20 million new jobs, support vulnerable communities in a just transition for workers, and fund a massive infrastructure project. Now, that is big, that is bold, but again, incredibly necessary. Now, you might have heard a lot of things from the right wing, which are funded by fossil fuel billionaires, but the Green New Deal, that's not true. Oh, they're gonna ban hamburgers. Ain't nobody banning your hamburger. Relax, settle down. Your hamburger is gonna be fine. Yes, agriculture does add a lot of carbon to the atmosphere. That is true. However, when you look at the breakdown, just 20 corporations, I think, at about 80% are responsible for a majority of the emissions. I think it was somewhere at 80%, could be higher, right? I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's a huge amount. And I'm sorry, it's 100 corporations, not 20. 100 corporations are responsible for the massive majority of carbon emissions. So, yeah. They also say that you're going to ban planes? No, they're not going to ban planes. So, or air travel or anything like this. So, absolutely ridiculous, right? So that said, the bigness and boldness of the plan, well, they attack as being too expensive. Again, that's not true as well. Here's the thing: it is not too big and too bold for us to actually take on. The Interstate Highway Project was also huge. The plan to rebuild the South after the Civil War, that was also huge. Or rebuilding Europe after the Second World War. That included our enemies, Germany and Japan at the time, who are now some of our strongest, most staunchest allies. Those were big undertakings. Those were epic. And I bet that there were people out there who also derided them as unrealistic. And yet here we are, we did those things. We need to look at the climate crisis the same way that we looked at those projects, the Marshall Plan, right? Because really, doing something on the climate is the Marshall Plan for today. Our generation, and the last couple of generations, we haven't had anything big like that. We haven't achieved anything big like that. It's kind of our turn, because climate change is the problem of the day. And it's going to be a huge problem well into the future if we don't do something about it. Now, in a tweet on Tuesday night, Jeffrey Suprin, a research associate in the Department of History of Science at Harvard, said that while the scholarship is clear and the technology to solve the climate crisis is available, it's not like we need something that some magical technology that's going to solve the climate crisis. No, we already have everything that we need, right? He said that what we lack most is the political will. Mr. Biden's comment embodies that. Now, that's important. Remember, Joe Biden tells groups of donors nothing will fundamentally change, right? If I become president, nothing will fundamentally change. Well, that means we're going to have more pipelines like DAPL and Keystone XL, more vague promises of big action while actually not really even doing the big bare minimum, which is staying basically within 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. Biden's plan does not get there in time. Doesn't get there in time. The Green New Deal is the only plan that climate experts call game-changing. Quote, a roadmap, this is another scientist, of what we as a society need to do to confront the climate emergency, and the only proposal put forward by a major candidate that represents a level of ambition that matches the scale of the unprecedented crisis in which humanity now finds itself deeply entangled. Now, there's another commentator on this. This is Darmanor, writing for Earther, saying, quote, you can argue about some of the details of Sanders' climate plan, but you can't argue about the seriousness of the crisis it will have to take on. The climate crisis is already causing heat waves, wildfires, storms, and floods, and unless we take serious action, it's going to get far, far worse. On that, the science is clear, and the Sanders plan is absolutely in line with what's needed to address it. Now, we also have Dr. Peter Kalmus, an associate project scientist at the UCLA Joint Institute for Regional Earth System Science and Engineering. That is a long title. He said this, quote, to have any chance of getting to net zero by 2030, we certainly need a plan that looks a lot more like Sanders than Biden's. I don't know if we can get to net zero emissions by 2030. No one knows, but I do know that it's up to us. And if we don't try, then we certainly will fail. And he is absolutely correct on that last part. If we don't try, we'll fail. Joe Biden is basically saying, why try too hard? We can't try too much, right? No, we've got to go incremental and just a little bit of change on the edges and not really anything too bold because we just can't do it. I mean, I've got to go and appeal to Republicans, and Republicans will, of course, be in favor of very modest reforms. Really? Are you sure? I mean, because, you were in the White House, you were vice president during the time of Obama, where Republicans fought every single effort to do anything about climate change. Are you sure they're going to now agree with you, Joe? When you go very modest and milk toast, is that what's going to happen? No, they're going to fight against every single thing. In fact, during the last 4 years of Trump, Donald Trump has rolled back every single environmental change that Obama was able to get through executive action. Not only that, pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord, which was basically the least you could do to try to get under 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming planet-wide. Very least that you could do. Not even a binding resolution, a non-binding resolution by all these different countries. No, still not good enough for Donald Trump. Got to get rid of it because Obama and because I don't care about the climate. You think Donald Trump's going to live to see the climate go to crap? No, he's not. Think his kids are? Well, his kids are wealthy anyway, so they can ride it out just fine. No. There are so many people that are going to be hurt. There are so many people that are going to die as a result of climate disruption. That is the problem. We can no longer afford to middle around with milquetoast solutions. It is time for Democrats, Democratic primary voters, to put your money where your mouth is. There's only one candidate that is supporting the bold action that we need. That is Bernie Sanders. We've got to get him nominated and vote for him in the general election so that we can enact this incredibly bold agenda that we need to. Okay. One more here. Vice President Joe Biden just can't seem to stop grabbing people. Now, in a recent exchange with an Iowa voter, the vice president got a little testy after being asked about climate change. Take a look.
I support you if you win the nomination because we got to get rid of Trump. But what are we going to do about climate change? Now, you say you're against pipelines, but then you want to replace these gas lines. That's not going to work. We can't. We got to stop building and replacing pipelines. You got to go vote for somebody else.
All right, thanks so much, sir. We're going to have you.
Thank
you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm going to vote you in the general if you treat me right.
I know. Well, I'm not.
Well, can I have
Look,
a
you're asking a picture of me, and coming up and telling me you don't support me.
No.
My plan. Yeah, you did. You said
I said I would support you in the
in
general.
the general. I'm looking for a primary.
We're happy to
and a
get a number.
caucus.
We can follow up.
That's what I'm looking for, okay?
Just because we're trying to get.
You believe that Bernie can do something by 2030?
I'm actually supporting Tom Steyer.
Thompson, well, that's good. He's the guy that did
Thanks
more
so much,
coal
sir. We have
mines.
a long line right
He
here.
made more coal than the entire country did.
All right, thank you. Happy to get
You got the right
Can we
guy.
get a picture?
So he's grabbing the guy and then poking his finger into his chest. Why do you keep doing that, Joe? Stop doing that. He's running for president. He can't keep his hands to himself. Really? Don't do that. Now, it's important to note that Joe Biden has never won a presidential primary before, right? He's ran at least 3 times. He's gotten crushed. Why? Because he does stuff like this. I mean, come on, dude. Don't do that. And by the way, the person that he was poking and grabbing is Ed Fallon. Now, Ed Fallon is the leader of the environmental conservationist group, Bold, Iowa. Now, Fallon is worried about oil pipelines like Dakota Access, Keystone XL. And the reason, of course, is because not only do they exacerbate climate change, but they also leak a lot, right? And that's damaging for the environment. And so this is a pretty valid concern, and yet was still treated like this. Biden, not a good guy here, right? And here's the thing. He's acting a lot like he's above reproach. In that way, I think he's far worse than Hillary Clinton, actually. But it is that same air that I get from him of the, hey, it's my turn. Don't you dare question me. I'm here because I deserve this. And you've heard him before. Go vote for somebody else. Go vote for Bernie Sanders then. Well, okay, we'll keep telling people that. In fact, I'm in favor of that message. But Fallon, as he mentioned in that video, he's not actually supporting Bernie Sanders. He's supporting Tom Steyer. Now, Tom Steyer's whole deal is let's do something about the environment. Okay. Now, the thing is, Tom Steyer is not an actual serious candidate. He's been spending pretty much all of his money in South Carolina. And so, look, again, he's got only a campaign team basically in South Carolina. Not a serious candidate, whatsoever. But still, I think when Tom Steyer drops out, the candidate that is best on the environment is going to be Senator Bernie Sanders. In fact, he gets an A+, the only person to get an A+, from Greenpeace. Now, Fallon told The Independent that he's repeatedly approached Biden about his concerns about climate change and fossil fuels, but says it's never been resolved. It seems like there's a disconnect. Interesting. No, Ed, I'm sorry, dude. You seem like a nice guy, and I'm on your side, but it is not a disconnect. Joe Biden doesn't care. Joe Biden takes money from fossil fuel companies and then does their bidding. And so it's super easy to see where Joe Biden is on an issue. You just follow the money. And that's why he gets so angry when you actually challenge him on it, because there's absolutely no defense. Now, afterwards, Fallon wrote this, that he found Biden's behavior during their talk to be, quote, disturbing on a number of levels, citing his propensity to violate personal space. Oh, this never happened with Joe Biden. Violating personal space? What are you talking about? And, quote, creating prime fodder for opponents and the media to attack Biden's campaign. Well, again, he's not wrong about that. That's literally what I'm doing this very second. I am using this to attack Biden's campaign. Why? Because his actions are ridiculous. If you're trying to win, maybe you should appeal to voters. I mean, why would you do that? Now, imagine if Bernie Sanders did something like that, right? Started poking voters and things like that. Now, Bernie Sanders, he's already getting attacked in the media. Joanne Reed bringing on this ridiculous body language expert. He wags his fingers at people, and he's loud, and he's hunched over, and he does like a turtle thing. No, it's ridiculous, right? Heads would explode though if he literally couldn't keep his hands off the voters. I mean, come on, dude. Really? Bernie Sanders at least tries to listen to people and have a conversation. That's why people like Bernie Sanders, because he believes in his positions and actually wants to fight for them. Whereas Joe Biden just says, we'll go vote for somebody else. Again, that's the same thing that Hillary Clinton said, oh, we don't need Bernie Sanders voters. We don't need progressives. We don't need your vote. Get out of here. Go vote for somebody else. And Biden has a history of telling people to vote for someone else. There are at least, 4 or 5 documented videos of him telling some people to vote for somebody else. In fact, I do have one of them I'd like to show you. This is Biden telling an activist to go vote for someone else.
How can young folks trust that you're going to fight for us on climate change when your climate advisor, your hand-picked climate advisor, served on the board of a fossil fuel company?
That is not the person who's doing my advising. And by the way, yeah, record.
Yeah.
Look at my record. Just look at the record.
I have President Biden, Vice President Biden.
Well, I tell you what, if you look at my record and you still doubt about my commitment, then you should vote for somebody else.
Go vote for somebody else. Go vote for somebody else. He even told an immigration activist to go vote for Donald Trump. How, disconnected from the voters is he? So now Fallon ended his column by saying, quote, Biden is simply wrong on climate change and out of step with voters on so many issues, which is why you have all these videos of people challenging him and basically getting told off, right? Bernie Sanders, by the way, here's the thing. Why should anybody vote for Biden when people like Bernie Sanders actually do better against Donald Trump? Again, the main argument here is, well, I can beat Donald Trump. But wait, everybody beats Donald Trump except for Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar literally, according to national polling, loses to Donald Trump. So I personally do not believe that Biden's lead over Trump will hold in a general election, by the way. I think he's got too much baggage. I think he's got the Hillary Clinton problem. But I hope we don't have to find that out. I hope that people do not make the same mistake as they did with Hillary Clinton and nominate somebody who literally is the face of the establishment. So now one more fun note here. This is Tom Steyer, right, who weighed in on Twitter. He said this, quote, that's no way to treat an Iowan. He said he'd vote for the Dem in the general because he knows how important it is to beat Trump. We need immediate action on climate. If you don't agree, happy to talk at debate, but don't take it out on voters. We need to win in November. To which I say, yeah, good, okay. But no, seriously. Again, I have a big issue with Biden in the condescension, right? Acting like he deserves this nomination and is getting petulant by attacking voters, or I'm sorry, when challenging voters, and he attacks them when they bring up his record. This isn't 1992, right? People can check your record. They will challenge you on it. And if you don't like it, well, then maybe you should drop out. Okay. That's all I got for stories today. So now, I got a couple of super chats that I want to answer real quick. Doro Hurtado just says, thank you. Well, thank you. I do appreciate it. Christina's Life asks, how come white liberals don't mention reparations? I think there is a lot of different answers on that, and none of them are good. And let's be honest about that. I think a lot of them are afraid of, if we mention the word reparations, that's immediately going to get cast in a negative light. because then you're going to have Republicans or right wingers attacking them and saying, "Oh, you're just going to give all this money, free money, away to these certain groups." Well, you're only doing that because you want to win elections. You just want to give them freebies. They are deathly afraid, and a lot of politicians are even some of the good ones are deathly afraid of taking on that issue because of how they're going to get framed in the media, right? And so I told you it's not a good answer. It shows how a lot of Democratic politicians and white liberals are incredibly cowardly when it comes to taking on the issues of reparations for slavery, reparations, as she mentioned, with Jewish people, and other things. And of course, another thing that people are going to bring up is, well, where does it stop, right? Where does the reparations stop? I'm not making that argument, but I'm basically playing devil's advocate and saying that this is what they're going to come at you with. And so I think it's going to create a situation where you're going to allow people, and again, playing devil's advocate here, where you're going to allow people to split each other up in that way of, it's not, oh, you're not being equitable because you're giving all these people money. Well, of course, they had been through these certain things that other groups of people had not been through before. White people didn't go through slavery here in America. Black people did. And so there's a debt to be paid, right? And I do believe Bernie Sanders has mentioned that there's a debt to be paid. I might not be, I'll have to double check on that. But I think he's talked about reparations before, but is still not in favor of it because those possible divisions, right? And so again, it's a very nuanced issue. It's a very difficult issue for a lot of people to talk about. And so that's why a lot of people don't talk about it. So that's kind of your answer. Again, it's not the greatest answer when it comes to this issue that is complicated and can engender a lot of terrible feeling on, I would say on certain sides. And so you're going to see that argument play out. But I do want to have that discussion. I think is a good discussion. I think it's necessary to have because of some of the things that people have been through. And so it is interesting stuff and a difficult conversation. Well, thank you for asking the question. All right. Peter S. says, I love the idea of turning over unnecessary defense spending to help poor communities. That's actually a really good idea. I do like that. So, Ann Anderson says, yeah, but I can hear some people saying my people did not enter the U.S. until 1900, so why should I pay? It always comes back to the why should I pay, right? And so I understand that. And then who should pay? And it does get into, again, engendering a split for people. And so, again, you have to find a way to approach the subject without getting that kind of response and still being able to go and talk to those communities and do something that helps those communities. Again, a debt is owed, and there needs to be a way to address that and to pay that debt for the suffering that we have put people through. And not we personally, but some of our ancestors have put people through. So again, very complicated, nuanced discussion. All right. Anyway, so thank you for the super chats. Thank you for joining the show. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. And consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation, or a channel member in order to help continue the show. The show could not exist without you. So thank you. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. See you guys tomorrow.
Please clap.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.